Hey everyone, welcome to the Number Two Septic Podcast. I'm here with Logan Holekamp, and he is of Guadalupe Wastewater down in sort of the hill country of Texas. Super excited to have him on today. Logan, thanks for being here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. This is a great time.
I loved also that you're outside. So that's just where most everybody spends all their time. So it's perfect.
Well, yeah, it's a beautiful day. I was going to be outside today anyways, so
Yeah, I
no
love it.
sense in going inside. Last place I want to be is the office.
Right? Absolutely, especially before it hits 100 degrees every day
Yeah,
in Texas for a
absolutely.
month or two. So that's great. Well, Logan, if you could just start by telling our audience, which is mostly other wastewater business owners, septic business owners, just tell them about your company, what services you offer, how long you've been around, kind of your business history, so we get a feel of where you're at. That'd be great.
Yeah, so I'm in Kerrville, Texas. I was born and raised here, been here my whole life, and we service the Kerrville, Fredericksburg, the Hill Country. We go west towards Lakey, stuff like that. We travel pretty far just because you get west of town, Kerrville Junction, west of Kerrville, you go to like Junction and Lakey. There's not a lot of providers over there, so we do travel. We still go back to the office every day, but hour and a half one direction for work. The business started in the early 80s when OSSF licensing became a thing. And what happened was the previous owner of the company, he was a surveyor and he was working with the county on a lot of their projects. And they needed someone who could get licenses, be a registered sanitarian to install wastewater systems in 84, 86 when all that started. So
Mhm.
that's how the business originated. Been operating ever since. It was it was the early 90s. My father started working at Guadalupe Wastewater, and I wasn't even in school yet. And he still works here. And I went on about my life as I did, and you know, life happened, and I decided that's something I wanted to do. And I ended up buying the company from the prior owner in the year of 2000, and it was a well-established company and did quite a bit of business, but it was fun that he wanted out,
Yeah,
and I needed something else to do, and it's been quite a journey in the last few years, to say the least.
I can just imagine. If you were to go back and give yourself advice in 2019, the year before the pandemic and the year before you bought the business, what advice would you go back and give yourself?
The biggest thing when I was getting into this situation was I wasn't really a large business owner of any scale at that point, and all I could think about was, obviously, am I going to make it? Am I going to survive? But it was money, and that's not a good thing. You obviously you need to be concerned about it. I'm not saying that, but I was looking at it as like, first of all, am I going to make it? This is a lot less money than I had in my prior job,
Hmm.
and then other thing is like, where can I go? How much money can I make? What can I do? That's not what it's about. I don't think that that's a good position to be in. It makes people do things that they shouldn't do. But those were my thoughts at the time. And then as I started figuring out like, hey, I can do this. I like doing this. It transitioned big time into like, next year, let's see if we can have enough work for 2 or 3 more guys and build a team and essentially employ more people and make the world a better place.
Yeah, so shifting from that survival mode when you first purchased the business to really starting to see the benefits of being a business owner. Like you said, make the world a better place, provide employment for other people, serve your customers well. What do you think was the turning point for you that got you out of that new owner survival mode into that really thriving and enjoying it and finding meaning from it?
Yeah, I don't know that the new owner survival mode is gone at all, but I still wake up every morning like, oh my God, I might go broke today.
Yeah.
Not that that's going to happen, or at least I hope it doesn't. But it started to become a lot less of work, a lot less of a job, and more of a lifestyle, more of a family situation. You got to have fun, and every day I get to wake up in the morning and go dig a hole in the ground, lack of better terms, to put shit in. And yeah, I like playing in the dirt. Who doesn't? Who didn't do that as a kid? Like it's the
Yeah.
perfect scenario. And I get to go and I leave the office early, and I had whatever 6 or 7 crews leave that day, and everybody had a place to go. Like it's a great day. Doesn't really matter what happens from there. It's fun to see that happen.
Yeah, I love that perspective. How has it been working with your dad? Have you ever worked with him before? And how did that go? There's a lot of people that have multi-generational family businesses in this industry. So, any tips on working for your father or with your father?
Yeah, I don't know that I really have any tips, but working with my dad is kind of awesome because him and I get along super well. very hard working man. He's in his 70s now. And, everyone always asks me, like, what is he doing? Why is he still there? Why is he doing that? Well, if I leave him at home, I come home at the end of the day and he's still on a tractor. He's still on a piece of equipment. He's still doing it. He
Yeah.
doesn't, his responsibilities have changed, obviously. Like now all he does is, run a tractor and backhoe or excavator, whatever it is at the time. But he enjoys that. The reason I know he enjoys that is because that's what he does when he's not at work. But the guy ultimately, he's a wealth of knowledge. All of my employees are a wealth of knowledge. A lot of them have been doing it longer than me. But yeah, overall, everyone likes to have that old guy in the office that knows what's going on. And I'm just lucky enough that it's my dad.
Yeah, that's really neat. That's really neat to have that as your dad, spend that time with him. And I think, like so many guys, I know my grandfather retired and he just hopped on a tractor and that's what he did. He just became his own hobby farmer because there was no slowing him down even till he was in his mid 80s. So keeping that purpose for him and keeping him busy.
Oh yeah, it's wild. It's a great deal. Here at the house, I'll have a backhoe or excavator or bulldozer, whatever that we're not using on a job. And you leave him at home, it's like the exact same piece of equipment. I come home and he is running it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, do you want to dig a hole at the ranch today? Or you want to go to work? Oh, well, and there he goes.
That's great. So when you first purchased the business, was it just you and him, or were there some other employees that you also purchased?
No, when I started this, we didn't do quite as much as we do now as far as offerings, but we still did and still do. We do our own designs, have registered sanitarians, PEs, and all that stuff that we have in staff and work with. There was a total of let's call it 4 or 5 employees. And I think we've since doubled that, if not a little better. To go back in time, how long and what we've been doing. My dad's maintenance provider license is 5 zeros and a 6-4. So he's the 64th person to have a maintenance provider license in the state of Texas. So we've been doing that. And I think they started requiring that in, it was like 93 or something like that, 94. So, some of our licenses date back to that time. Same thing, installer 2 and registered sanitarians. They go back to the beginning, our employees. But to answer your question, yes, we had about 5 employees whenever I started. And now we're over a dozen doing roughly the same work. We haven't really ventured outside very far of the wastewater industry. We do some additional work pretty regularly, but it's not a large portion of what we do.
Yeah. So when you when you bought the business, purchased the business, was it providing all the services, pumping, installing, maintenance, repairs, or have there been services you've added since purchasing the business?
Yeah, so whenever I purchased a business, we didn't pump septic systems. It was mainly a neighborly thing. We have an office that we all go to every day, and it's right in the middle of Kerrville. I don't know if you've ever been there, but it is like on the Guadalupe River in town, and restaurants on both sides, hair salons, stuff like that. So with the prior owner, his name was Charlie. I was like, "Did you ever do that?" He's like, "No." He's like, "I just didn't think that it would be a good idea to have that truck sitting right there." I was like, I kind of understand that. I get
Yeah.
that. We started doing that shortly after, and I wouldn't say it was out of necessity. And I don't claim to be someone who does a lot of pumping. And honestly, it's not, there is money to be made. You can, do all that kind of good stuff with it. But it was because I would recommend somebody and I would go out there and they wouldn't dig up the trash tank or something like that. And it's like, come on, guys, you just charge for this. And then the other aspect of it was you'd get a call from a customer and, hey, I just had my system pumped. You'd go out there and the problem wasn't that it needed to be pumped. They spent $700 and they needed a $200 rebuild kit. So, they pumped it and still needed the $200 rebuild kit. So I was like, well, man, maybe I should offer this service. So I kind of made some ways and did some things to make sure that I'm not the guy next door that has a tank full of poop right in the middle of town.
So the truck is parked there, but it's just
Yeah.
guys are emptied or
Yeah.
okay. That's great.
Yeah, hasn't been an issue.
So when you purchased the business, how did it work with all of the licenses? Did those just come along with the employees? Did your father have all of them and so it was fine? Did you have to go get, registered or your license for all of the different services? How did that kind of work? Because I know there's a lot of guys who are in that sort of growth phase and there's this question mark of, do I go get it myself? I have a client that just does pumping and there's a big question mark. Do I go get my maintenance license myself? Do I have try to get an employee that has it? So how did you work that licensing with your employees and the growth there?
So in OSSF stuff, TCQ, the license is held by the individual, is the way that it works. So if you're a registered sanitarian and you quit your job, you go to the next job, you're a registered sanitarian at that
Mm.
job. And if you're the only one, your prior job no longer has a registered sanitarian. So they were unable to do that. I've never really thought about it, but I would venture to say that we have like, it's got to be 20 licenses, probably more now that I think about it, but there are a lot of them. And they are an issue for someone who is trying to start in this business. There is a lot of them. You absolutely want to go get a license. There are ways. You have to get crafty. It does take time. And again, if you're a pumper, you know someone in the service industry or industry and stuff like that. Those guys, they're willing to help. I mean, I've
Yeah.
helped other people and I'd be willing to help, but you do have to have some, it's not considered hours, but you need to have accomplished some work that your license wouldn't allow you to accomplish. And people will help you out with that. And it's good. I don't disagree with that at all because the last thing you want to do is throw someone in the field that doesn't know what they're doing. The state doesn't want that. That's why they have those licenses. If you read the book and you say, "Oh, okay, yeah, you can be an apprentice for a year, and all you have to do is put in 3 systems." So essentially, in 2 years, you could have a level two year in an hour or two. Well, that's not the case because of the scheduling conflicts and getting license and getting tested and doing that other stuff. It does in fact take years to do it all. There is a lot to do, just say in a normal aerobic system or spray or drip or whatever. In in order for that system to go in the ground, you would have to have a site evaluator, registered sanitarian, and a level two installer, which you would also have to have a level one. And then it takes three just to get one system in the ground. And that could be three people, that could be one. In our case, we have all of that. But yeah, to make those transitions, just go get the licenses because even if whenever you go to take the class and you go to take the test, you're not going to walk away with the information that you need to go do it, but you have a year or whatever before you advance that into something that you can use, and you need to, spend that year figuring out what it really is that you need that license for. The classes is they teach you other things than that. Not that they're bad. It's just they don't teach you how to do a lot of the real world stuff.
Yeah. That hands-on training is really
Yeah. And I guess the biggest thing about it is like if you're working in Harris County or West Texas or the Panhandle or stuff like that, it's just like it's a totally different things. There's totally different systems out there that you would be working on, the kinds of soils. And the guy that's teaching you, he's not going to be versed in your area unless he's in your area. So that's where the year comes in that you find someone in your area and figure out what it is that needs to happen.
You touched on something that I want to ask more about. You talked about it. If you need something, there's going to be someone else that will help you out. And I have definitely experienced the wastewater community to be pretty tight knit, and especially regionally, everybody really knows about each other. And they know the county people, they all know each other. So, what's your sort of mindset or the way that you look at working with other guys in the industry? How do you approach that? Because sometimes you're helping your competitors. So just talk more about how you approach that with them and what benefit it is to be helpful for other people.
Oh, it's a tremendous benefit. So, for example, is in a year's time, I'll have like 2 to 3 sets of crews installing septic systems. In 2025, I probably put in 20 like
Mm.
actual licensed septic systems. The reason that I bring this up is because the work that I'm doing is personally is a larger systems. Like, last year I put in at least 6 jobs that were at the 5,000 gallon a day mark.
Wow.
So, those take up a huge portion of my time. So I'm not putting in residential systems at a 2 bedroom single family dwelling. So if someone were to approach me, hey, I have this or whatever, great. I mean, here they are. Let's go do them. And exclusively, that's not exclusive to the install. I mean, the same thing is with the services and the maintenance. I mean, I've had pumpers contact me, hey, man, I showed up. This was here. What do I need to do? And really, you can't work on it. Let me show you how. These are the licenses that it takes to be able to do that. Go get the class. Let's figure it out. And I can't do it all.
Yeah.
some people would consider them competitors, but we all have our own way of doing things in the industry. And
Mm.
not every customer wants to do business with me, and I don't want to do business with every customer. So like, where there needs to be multiple people out there, they're not competitors. They're just, colleagues that get their paychecks from a different place. It's fine. And I think that's true with a lot of other industries as well.
Yeah, and I think that's such a great way of looking at it. I think when you've got things more on stable ground, it's a little easier, but sometimes I've talked to some people in the industry who have been in there for 40 plus years and they see a lot of new people coming and just this feeling of competition can be really intense for some personalities. And so I just love hearing your perspective on it that, not everybody's for everybody.
Oh, the thing about it too is like you can't forget is that there's three things. It doesn't matter what you're buying or what you're doing, but it's how quick, how much, and how good is it.
Yeah.
So no one's going to be all three of them. You know, but you could be two really good, and the customer is asking those questions, and those are the things that you need to decide which one you are and how you want to model it. And not that any of them are bad, because like I said, if the customer wants it quick and cheap, like he needs to go with the quick and cheap guy. There's a quick and cheap guy. If he wants to pay a lot of money and doesn't mind waiting, then that's for something super super good. Then it's the super good guys. So yeah, obviously the market could get saturated with stuff, but I think it's possible. I don't think that's a situation that we're in now, but yeah, I would think you were perceiving someone as competition or something like that. I wouldn't so much be concerned about them being competition. Just do better. Just do something that they're not doing. Embrace something and go with it. And if it works, you're great. It
Yeah.
doesn't, do it again. Biggest thing is if you decide you want to be the cheap guy, which everybody loves the cheap guy, everyone
Yeah.
shops on Amazon, figure out how to be cheap and then figure out how to get good at it. It's all good. Just run with it.
That's so good. I really appreciate you sharing that because of the conversations I've had with people. I know this is a real underlying thought process that a lot of business owners have. So, thank you for speaking to that. I think that was
Yeah.
really great. Another question I have for you, as you've built the business, sounds like you've a little bit more than doubled your workforce. So, hiring and firing can both be a big part of being a business owner that's difficult. So, talk to us about what have you done that's worked as far as hiring a good team? How do you find those people? What are some things that you've done that have set them up for success as you've gotten them started?
Yeah. First thing I want to say is I think I have the greatest employees ever. I mean, the people are phenomenal. It's the middle of the day right now, middle of the week, and we're sitting here doing this. I don't have to be up babysitting anybody or do anything like that. I feel very confident that they're doing their job and they're great people.
That's amazing.
When it comes to getting new people, I remember when I was a kid and I was young and I had a job and multiple jobs, and I was like, yeah, I'm like super young and I'm way better than those guys. Like, this is awesome. We'll keep going 100 miles an hour, see where I can get. Those are the kind of people that I want. That's probably not a good thing, but it is what I do. So I haven't ever really pursued the whole like, let's try to hire someone who's licensed in this field and see what they're capable of. It's more, you know what, I'll take that guy on. He's a felon. There's whatever's wrong with him. Like, let's go. Let's see what he can do. And if it doesn't work out, it doesn't work out. And I think the big thing is like hiring or getting hired. Like, you go into it with a mindset of like, let's just go on a first date and see what happens. I tell everybody like, these are the possibilities. This is what we could do. The sky's the limit. Like, in the ideal world, I wouldn't be here. I'd love for you to have my job. But right now, we're going to get a shovel and we're going to grind. We're going to go 100%. I mean, I'll go with those guys. Like I said, I like digging holes in the ground. Who doesn't?
Yeah.
But, we do hard work. And that's kind of where we have always started. And with that, I've transitioned a few people over the years who are now on their own with their licenses doing with crews. Do I think it's the only way of doing things? No. And I don't even know that it's the best way. It's just how my little thinking machine operates. So that's what I do. But like I said, the guys that I got, the team, I mean, the people that I inherited, they're awesome. And some of the people that I've hired also, they're also super awesome. My employees are great.
So you're just that hungry, work hard sort of mentality. And it sounds like people who also are the same speed as you tend to really enjoy working with you because you guys you're sort of wired the same way. And it sounds like, too, you'd rather hire someone who has more of the character qualities that you're looking for rather than necessarily the skill because you can train the skill, but it's really hard to train the character of somebody.
Yeah, I mean, if you know how to do it, that's great. But if you're capable of doing it, that's a totally different thing. I can teach you how to do it. We can figure that out. But it's definitely let's get over here, let's get done, and we'll make it happening and get on to the next project. Those people are out there. That's kind of the way that I do it, and so those are what I look for. For the most part, it's relatively young guys. I don't think almost everybody we have is under the age of 42 years old, or except for two or three guys. But it's hard work. You don't want to do it when you're old,
Yeah.
and it's also difficult too because a lot of people don't want to work outside and a lot of people don't want to work and poop, but some people, it doesn't bother them. It doesn't bother me so much either. It pays the bills. It keeps the lights on in the house. So I'm
Yep.
happy to do it.
Yep. It'll always be a need.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It will always be a need.
It's not going anywhere. Well, I'm sure purchasing a business and learning how to run it, doubling in size has come with its ups and its downs. So, talk to us about the hardest situation you've encountered and what did you do to get through it to the other side?
I'm not a glass half empty kind of guy. So to say that like a super hard situation, like nothing really comes to my mind. But that doesn't mean that life is cherry and easy. I kind of said something about this a little bit earlier. And this has been something that I don't know where I got it from. I don't know why I feel this way, but it's like if someone that's in that situation, first of all, you have to be responsible. And that means it was your fault. You could have avoided it. I've had people that don't pay or string me out for some stuff that lasted over a year and a substantial amount of money. You can't go into a situation like that and say, these guys did this to me. These guys did this to me. That's why I'm where I'm at. Everyone told you that was going to happen.
Right.
So what did you do? How did you get yourself in that position? Getting yourself into that position is going to happen. It's what you did before you got there or once you got in that position that separates whether you pass or fail on something like that. But the way that I just kind of approach life in general is I wake up every morning and it's like, oh my God, I'm gonna go broke today. Like, what, we gotta go. Let's get to going, guys. We're burning daylight and let's make it happening. And so I think that's a lot of the reason why. It's because you have to channel, like you have to look back in your vault whenever you did have that situation and how you recovered it. If you were to stay in that mindset of like, I may not be able to make payroll next week, and what are you going to do to make sure that you make payroll? You won't ever have the issue of actually not being able to make payroll because you're always pushing. You got to basically embrace that, oh my gosh, it's failing situation to work through it.
Yeah, I had a business owner, super, super successful, told me that the secret to being really successful is not necessarily just being smarter than other people. It's just being willing to be uncomfortable for a longer period of time, where you have that feeling of, am I going to make payroll? And you just embrace it and do what you have to do, what you can control to get to the other side. And I think that's what really makes success is just, you're just willing to sit with the sucky parts of it and do what you need to do anyway and push through.
Well, everybody has something. Everything has something. So, like, whenever you get into a super uncomfortable situation, some people want to go inside, some people want to hide, some people want to go outside and do something, but you all have your thing.
Mm.
So, when you're in that super uncomfortable position, whatever the thing is that you're doing, it's basically isolating yourself, like getting your thoughts off of the rest of it. So, to me, it's like, okay, guys, this project has to be done. This project has to be done. Why aren't you done? Why aren't you done? It's we'll just go and work as if it doesn't matter. Like, we're fine. Just go. This is all we can control. Let's do what we can control and don't focus on that kind of stuff. Uh, you don't want that burning in the back of your mind, like, we're not going to get done. We're not going to get done. You'll never get done. Just worry about the next steps. Let's go forward. Let's advance the ball a little bit here. It kind of goes back to the deal. It's like you just have to go. Finishing something wrong and figuring out that you have to redo it is way better than never getting done.
That's true. Yeah. So, what habits have you put in place as a business owner so that you're in the position where you can sit outside on a beautiful day and have this conversation rather than just working all the time? Getting from that place where you're working in your business all the time as a worker to you're really an owner and a manager and managing people. What are some of the habits or maybe disciplines that you've had to have yourself personally to make sure that you're not getting in the weeds and you're taking yourself kind of out of the situation enough to be effective for the whole company?
Well, let's start on some habits, and then we'll go into why I'm able to be here during working hours. It's been like a little over a year ago or so or something like that, but I kind of had always done this, but I really decided like, hey, I'm going to commit 100% to this deal. I took my cell phone, I put it in the bathroom, and set an alarm for super early. And you have no option but to get up
Ah,
because there's a buzzing alarm going off. So like it's 3:55 in the morning and I'm wheels up. By the time you're in there, you're brushing your teeth and life goes on, right? So I started doing that and it absolutely blow your mind at how much stuff you can get done. I think yesterday I worked from like 4 to 9 p.m. and it wasn't because I had to or anything like that, but it was like, this is the next thing. This is the next step. This is what I want to do. And it's not that I was doing the same job the whole time. So where I'm going with this is you still need to put in the time. I got started a little bit earlier than some today. So I've accomplished a lot of the goals that I needed to get done.
Mm.
And now I'm in a position as we sit here in the middle of the day where my guys are on task doing the stuff, the programs, the drills that we have taught them. First thing in the morning, I needed to be there to get us going, and then I have a meeting I had to go to and I do that meeting. And then I was in the field wiring up some panels and stuff like that. And then we're here. And then this afternoon, we'll go and we'll do the afternoon drill. It's a lot of regulating your time and you need to be available, obviously, but make sure that you are absolutely there when you need to be there because the first few minutes of the day, like it sets a tempo for the rest of the day. Monday morning sets a tempo for the rest of the week. So you got to be there. You got to do your parts. You got to put your hours in. It's just a time management thing. And two, you have to have programs. So, we don't have checklists, but we have drills. We have what you call them drills, but plays that we run through the week where Wednesday we focus on this, Tuesday we focus on that, and to make sure that that's all scheduled and planned and set out. And people like that because it gives them the ability to also plan their life because on the day where it's like, all right, we're going to run 100 miles an hour and we're going to do services because we're almost out. Those guys don't end up going home early that day. And they know that because it never fails. When you show up to the house at 3 or 4 o'clock, those people also have an alarm and you end up doing more stuff than just a 7-minute routine service or whatever it takes. So some schedules and some planning goes a really long ways and being conscious of your time and using it. You got to make sure every day as a business owner that you do something that you wanted to do, especially in the like work part of it. So if you set yourself up for a day of 17 hours in the office and you don't want to be in the office, that's not going to be a good day. You're not going to go home
Yeah.
happy. You need to make sure that there's some time in there that you do get to whatever it is, whatever industry you're in, that you get to go back to your roots and do whatever it was that brought you to the place you're in. I feel that that's very important. I mean, I was on a machine right before we got here. It's what I want to do.
Yeah. And you find that getting up early helps you have that time that's uninterrupted to get things done when the team isn't up and running. There's not customers calling, there's not emergencies. Do you feel like that's a big part of helping you schedule out your days when you have that uninterrupted early morning hours?
Well, I do that solely for my own personal pleasure. When I get up at 4 o'clock in the morning and I go do something, it is very seldom that it is Guadalupe Wastewater related. And so when I show up for work, it's like, gosh dang, man, I am so glad that I finally got the hinges put on the barbecue pit or whatever. Like,
Yeah.
man, that's been bothering me. All right, let's go to work. Let's make it happen kind of thing. Like, it's going to be a good
Yeah.
day. And, the same thing at the end of the day, you come home from work. Yeah, sometimes I'm tired. Sometimes I want to sit on the couch, but also, oh, it's a nice weather. Let's go outside and do something. And, that's how I end up getting into situations where I work. Like yesterday, I didn't get to the house till 9, but I was doing what I wanted to do. So it wasn't work per se, but yes, I think that this is true with everybody. But like, you need to set some time aside for yourself. In the afternoon, everybody wants to be together. Everybody wants to talk about what they did, eat dinner. So that's usually not a good time. But in the morning, like the amount of things that you can accomplish, obviously it's dark outside. You're not going to be able to do much, and sometimes it is work related, but yeah, you got to go and get it done. I will say, like, it blows my mind what I'm able to accomplish in those times.
That's great advice. If somebody wanted to take your idea of the drills or the playbooks or checklists that you're running with your team on a weekly basis, can you give some practical, maybe just one drill that you do of what exactly that looks like if someone wanted to implement that into their own business?
Yeah, when it comes to wastewater industry, when it comes to installing a wastewater system, pretty much you got to do today what you didn't do yesterday. And that's true every day. But what you do need to get done today is you have to be ready for tomorrow. Everyone that listens to this podcast, I'm sure, went to the supply store in the morning at some point in their life. It is the least productive time of the day to go to the supply store because everyone is in there. They're talking, they're eating donuts and doing whatever. So if you can have that stuff delivered and you put in your truck and you go to work, like you just got an extra hour or two in that day to work, get that stuff delivered. So on the install aspect of stuff, there's not much to do other than what you didn't do yesterday, but you do got to make sure that you are ready for today. When it comes to like services and pump outs and stuff, the biggest one thing that's pretty necessary is like from one end of our territory to the other, if you were to drive it in a straight line, it would be like probably close to 3 hours. Obviously, you need to make sure that you don't put yourself in that situation. If you're one guy and you're starting out, you're going to be in that situation. You just need to make sure that you capitalize on it. And when you're all the way to the east and you got to go all the way to the west, you just got to make sure that you have what you needed to do when you get to the west. And then you need to have some more work to get back home. As far as our system of planning and scheduling, most of that is in the services and the pump outs. And what we do is, because the pump outs are absolutely necessary and they need to be done, and it's a fine business. A lot of the pump outs that we do, we stick with mainly our customers that we do services for, or we do maintenance and stuff like that on, or the ones that we work with. And it's hey, we need to get this thing pumped, looking at it in the near future. Okay, let's get that scheduled. So I don't do a lot of, hey, can you come pump my system today? So I can't vouch much for how that operates, but I can tell you that a lot of that happens. And then when it comes to the maintenance contract portion of it, the robots maintenance contracts, we have a system, a database, and it's been in place for a very, very long time. And at this point, it's, some might say it's archaic, but it still runs the same process software that anybody else uses. We just don't have cool, fancy apps and stuff. But you got to focus on making it better. There's no good enough. There's none of that kind of stuff. So whatever it is that happened in that day and that time, don't just write it and add it to the notes section or something like that, because then all of a sudden you have 1,000 customers, and in the notes it says that they have a filter and they're going into their pump tank or something like that. And so there's no way to quantify how many customers are like searching by the whole thing. So like once you find these nuances, it's like, okay, yeah, call them for that, guys. And then we can search for a yes or a no, whether that exists. You got to focus on improving your systems if you want them to be better. It doesn't matter what you start with. It can be a dry erase board and a piece of paper, but sometimes the super expensive software is super, super, super helpful. Sometimes you find out that like you focus on making your system better that you had, and it's great, and you save all that money. And sometimes you realize that you just spent a year and went backwards. But
Yeah.
again, you have to do something, even if you fail, to realize what the right move is.
Right.
So yeah, if you need to be better, then yeah, that's what you focus on. Is change. Just do it, try it, go.
And being proactive and not just reactive to everything that happens in the day, but really thinking ahead and thinking how you can improve things. So my last question as we wrap up is, how have you seen just the industry as a whole, especially with technology and kind of there's some new cool fancy things out there with remote monitoring software. How have you seen the industry change since you've owned the business, and where do you see it in 5 to 10 years?
So as far as the industry changing, just like anything else, it changes. We're still operating on like the septic system itself. It hasn't changed. At one point, we started making our tanks watertight, and then decided that we should make sure that the effluent goes underground, not just on top of ground. And then the aerobic thing came along in the 80s, and there's not like a huge breakthrough in the base like fundamentals of what happens. Do I think that that is possible? Yes. Do I have any idea what it would look like? No, I'm not privy to any of that. The changes that I see is, yeah, there is some remote monitoring stuff happening. I've done some of that. There's some things that I do that I know I'm the only one to do because they built the stuff for me and I'm the only one that buys it. But there's a lot of fail-safe stuff that can be done in these systems. They put you in a situation where, on Saturday when you're having a party, you don't have to have me come out. Some of that stuff does come at a cost, redundant pumps. And, we have alarms that go off way before you get a high water alarm that tells you, hey, we just asked this pump to run and it didn't run. Let's get it fixed before we get to the point where, sewer's backing up in the house and stuff like that. The industry is not going anywhere. Absolutely, people are going to need to continue to use it. There has been some changes in the way we talk about using gray water and what it's used for and what it can be used for. I think that there's some future in there. And as a whole, I don't think that the gray water thing is great. The problem that we have about it now is that it takes a long time to get everything tested through NEC and how it's going to be used and how we're going to do it, to be able to say like, hey, here is a reasonably priced option for your particular situation that can be used. I think that's the most difficult part. It's not that we don't know how to do it. It's what are you going to allow us to do?
Right.
What's going to work? I think that there's a lot that can be done there. The
Yeah.
industry's not going anywhere. People are moving out of town like crazy.
Yeah, they are.
municipalities, they're only as big as they are. And quite frankly, they can't grow. They have their ETJ that they can expand into. But
Mhm.
outside of that, it's all private property that they're, not going to have the ability to. So it's happening. There's thousands of wastewater systems that go in, tens, hundreds of thousands every year. And I don't think that number's going anywhere. People want to be out of town, and towns are tapped out. They can't take anymore. So it really and truly, it's a great industry. I think
Yeah.
COVID was awesome because everybody left big cities and, wanted to move to 5 or 10 acres, and they needed a wastewater system.
Yeah, it kind of brought everybody back to their roots again.
Yeah. And I like that. People need to be outside. It's a great place.
It is. There's actually a lot of science behind mental health and being outside. So it's not just anecdotal, it's real that it affects people in a positive way.
It definitely affects me in a positive way.
Same. I have to be outside every day, at least.
Yeah.
So at least once a day for an hour, I'm outside walking. So it's good. So just last question for you. If you could give one piece of $1 million advice to someone aspiring to grow their septic install, pumping, or service business, what would that be?
No, everybody always worries about like what happens if it doesn't work out. What happens if it does?
That's great. I love that. That's such a good mindset shift for everybody.
Yeah. And if it doesn't, it's fine. Like just do it again. Just figure out what you did wrong and do it again.
Yep.
Go. I mean, you could, whatever, you could lose your job, you could lose your family, you can lose all that stuff. Sun's going to come up tomorrow. You're going to have to face a date. Just do it. Just grab life by the horns and go 100 miles an hour. You'll end up somewhere.
That's awesome. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time in the middle of this beautiful day outside and talking to all of us and sharing your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for having me.